recording. It's already started.
Okay, cool.
And
Hello,
I will-
everybody.
I'm going to mute everybody. Hang on, Esther. I'm going to mute everybody and bring you back.
Okay. I'm glad we're, pulled this together. We've got like 19 people here. I'm sure a few more will show up late because you guys always do. I know what you're like on handing in manuscripts too. So my goal is to, at the end of this, have you guys have some understanding of how I do social media for fun and profit. I'm going to ask that you hold questions till the end. We are recording this, and this way, those people that kind of want to do a zoom through what I have to say don't have to be held up. And also, I've done a couple of these walkthroughs, and I've discovered in doing them, if I let somebody ask questions, the answer is always on the next slide. So,
Esther?
Yeah, I'm going to start sharing my screen in a moment.
Okay, while you're doing that, I'll just point out that I'm going to monitor the chat screen.
Oh, okay.
So if anybody has something that they want to break in with, you can type a chat message and I will see it. And I alone will decide whether or not I'm going to interrupt Esther and tell her about it. So.
Okay. Well, if I did things right, then I am sharing my social slide. Are you seeing it?
I see it.
Okay, cool. If you do, I'm assuming everybody else does too, and you'll get messages otherwise. So, like I said, this is kind of a best practices thing. And I figure this is probably about 45 minutes of talking, and then we'll keep it open for as long as people want to hang around. So what we're going to start with is, remember the Clue Train Manifesto? It was a thing when we started the IPG many years ago. If you have not seen it or, given yourself a refresher course, you might want to do that again, because I have it very much as a baseline of my philosophy in that everything we do is a conversation. And whether it's I'm writing an article, I'm doing social media, whatever it is that I'm doing, I think of as a conversation between me and someone else. And that is what we do when we do our jobs well. So just to set definitions, most of the time we think in terms of writing an article and creating some kind of content. I'm going to assume it's articles. It obviously applies to other things as well. But just to throw a definition up there, social media marketing is the process of getting that stuff noticed, or in my communication terms, using social media to create and nurture conversations. And obviously you can't have a conversation unless you have something to talk about. Well, some of us. There's always baseball. So to me, the goal of what we're doing when we're doing any kind of social media amplification, which is the marketing term if you talk to clients, is to attract the eyeballs, or basically to get an article discovered. The way that I think of it is I spent time and energy and money or whatever in order to create this article that I thought was worthwhile. And I want the person I wrote it for to discover it. There's usually some kind of a target reader that's true, whether we're talking about content marketing or when I work at CIOs, true, quote, true journalism. We have some idea of the middle of the bullseye. And when it comes to social media in particular, I really don't care if I get people who are not part of that target market. As long as I get some percentage of them, if nothing else, I almost certainly am going to be in that category, because I'm only going to submit to places that at least some of them would care. So if I have a target market of project managers, and I get, just to pick numbers, 1,000 page views, where 100 of them are actually my target market, my target reader. I would rather have 1,000 people of whom read it, of whom 100 are the target, than 100% of 100. If nothing else, because the former spreads a lot more widely. The person who is not the target reader may know somebody who is and will share this, or do something to bring it to the attention of somebody who is a wider part of the target. And when it comes to social media in particular, we're writing to people who don't know they have a problem, which is the case for a lot of journalism, is that discoverability. I'm pretty sure that the number of people searching for project management tips from Game of Thrones is really small. And that's fine, because this is for the serendipity side of things. So I'm going to start out with the key part of this, which is why should I bother? What's in it for me from a writer's point of view, in particular editors as well, but editors know that we're judged at some level or other on page views. As a writer, there's multiple reasons, obviously. One of them is simply, it's your job to do it. Nobody knows the story as well as you do. Nobody knows why it matters as much as you do. You wrote it for a reason, and to reach somebody and to help somebody and to entertain them, hopefully all of those at once. So it's your job to help reach the people who you wanted to help. If nothing else, in my heart, that's what makes me happy. Back when I started doing any kind of book publishing, I was told directly that the publishers get the book onto the shelf at the bookstore, and if you want to get it off the shelf and turn it into cash, that's your job. And that's really the same thing that what we're doing now. It's just more direct, which is a good thing, because it means you can have some control over it. In the most direct, dollar sign way, more page views for your articles is more assignments. I absolutely will tell you this outright. I give assignments to writers. I would give an assignment to a writer who has really good social media clout, in this usual word of it, who is otherwise requires a lot of attention, over somebody who doesn't do anything to get their story noticed. Just like in any other kind of business, if you work with somebody who really cares about you succeeding, you're more willing to deal with them, because I feel that you care, and I want to work with people who care about my success, and that's going to benefit you. Not the least of which is if you regularly deliver 100,000 page views to an article that you write for me, I get a benefit and you're going to get the benefit. So, and I can tell you from the point of view of as an editor who has given out lots of assignments over the years, including to many of you, there's absolutely a direct correlation between income and social media efforts. It doesn't always mean success, but if you try, sometimes you succeed, and at least you tried. So, and also just whether or not it's working for a specific publication, this is your personal brand. If you are an expert in this area and you write about it regularly, this is how you demonstrate it, by what you put on your Twitter feed and LinkedIn and any number of other places. It means that your prospective clients look at what you talk about and what you care about, and that's what they're hiring, because they're hiring you. So there's kind of this old viewpoint that some of us have that came, especially old style print, which is, I wrote the article, I gave it to the editor, and I'm done. And it doesn't work anymore. And besides, I think of it as I'm always there to serve the reader, and I want that reader to discover it. And we all get really depressed if we spent a lot of time and energy creating an article that nobody read. So this is your way to actually help make that happen. So what I'm going to do next is go into a little bit of an overview of social media sites by category, and then I'm going to dive a little deeper in a few of them. So there's several that you already know, or at least know of. Obviously, Twitter, Facebook, Google+. For most of us, Tumblr, Instagram, and Pinterest don't apply too much, because they tend to be more, I want to say, visual things. So I'm not doing anything about what, wedding dresses to buy. So those have never done anything for me. At one point I kind of tried, but it really never helped. And category-wise, we have gatekeeper sites, in which there is some human being who decides what's going to be just show up on the site. OS News, Slashdot, Linux Today, Code Project, and so on. In those cases, I'm not going to go into any detail of them, except that you have to write. It's essentially like writing a pitch to an editor, where you're convincing the gatekeeper and indirectly, actually directly convincing the gatekeeper that this is worth putting on the site. It should be of the top 10 things that Slashdot covers. And those are actually like individual short articles that link to what you want them to see. I'm not going to go into depth on those because I think of those sort of as the advanced set of skills. Sometimes it's just a question of creating your own personal network, where I wrote to the guy that runs the Code Project newsletter yesterday and said, I am positive you're really going to like this article. And he wrote back and said, oh God, I can't resist it. And it's given 2,500 page views today so far on Friday. There's the old school set of things, which they still work if you get into the right email group and forums and we chat up bloggers. I don't put a lot of attention on those so much, except in the sense of when I publish, if I go to them for input, I just did with a couple of sites today. I'll go back and post the link, but I'm not going to go into any detail of what's successful there because they take a lot of effort and basically you have to be part of that community. Where my attention is going to be is on link sharing sites, both general and specific. So just as an overview, the biggest one now and for the last several years has been Reddit. In reality, it's a collection of specific individual communities that all go to one main homepage when these things are successful. And I'm going to go into a lot of detail on Reddit in a few minutes. Stumble Upon is another one where anybody could submit anything and you say what category it goes into, whether it's archaeology or Linux or any number of other things. Anybody can submit anything. And it's really capricious. I'm not going to go into more detail later, so I'll just talk about it briefly now. Stumble Upon is really capricious. You never know what's going to pick up. I've had Stumble Upon suddenly start giving page views to an article from 4 years ago. I just submit to it and hope for the best. For some reason with my HPE site, it's doing really well. So, and it literally takes, if it takes you a minute, it's because you put too much thought into it. There's always things trying to compete with Reddit that are like Reddit, only different, and trying to deal with the Reddit's problems of community or whatever else. There's ISME, SnapZoo, Impeopled, Refined, Vote. There's probably others. None of them drive a huge amount of traffic, but I submit to most of them anyway because it never hurts. You're going to hear me say that a lot. There's also specific types of link sharing sites. For a given community. So .NET Kicks is a small community, but it is just for Visual Studio. If you write for the .NET universe, the categories to pick from are all really specific to .NET, and that's the place to be, right? If you happen to be writing about that, I'm not going to post about the history of the floppy disk to that because they don't care so much. It's not their area. There's not even a category for it. Every once in a while they can surprise you, but I don't put my time on it. But the idea is that you find the community that cares about the article that you just published. Or your friend published or whatever. The one of these that actually drives a meaningful amount of traffic is newsycombinator.com. I think of as Y Combinator as a similar to Reddit. Most of the rules that apply to Reddit will apply to Y Combinator. It is nominally it's like startup business. It's the Bay Area in crowd. They tend to be geeky, so an article about Lord of the Rings does well there, as well as, who acquired who, or I did really well there when I asked for input on an article about telecommuting. So they don't all generate lots of traffic, but they all generate some. Oh, and I'll point out bizsugar.com just ought to be so much better than it is, and it's always a great disappointment, but again, it never hurts. So when it comes to the idea of submitting things to these sites, obviously you create an ID and a login for any of them. They're all freebie logins, doesn't take much. The difference is in how you promote articles on these sites, and there's several of them. One of them starts with SEO versus social media. Remember, social media is a conversation. When you're writing for SEO, you're writing just the facts, ma'am. You're just trying to hit keywords. Social media is about engaging with humans, and humans respond not to keywords but to emotion. So you absolutely do not, by default, do not expect that you will use the same headline that you used for the article on social media sites. Sometimes you can, especially if you did a good job on the headline. And that's usually a headline that has emotion in it. But I actually create, when I'm writing the article, it's, headline, deck, social media headline. It is a conscious, different thought process. The ones that succeed usually have emotion or mystery. I'll go into some more of those things. Long headlines do better. Very often you can use the deck from your article, which is the one that isn't just the clever headline that doesn't tell somebody anything. People they want a mystery to actually click through and read it, but very often they want to know, what am I getting in for? Make it worth it for me to click on this. One of the reasons that I put so much more attention on social media than on SEO is my absolute experience over the years that if you're a success in social media, you will be a success in SEO. If I have an article on Slashdot, that article will do really well on the site on SEO for at least 6 months, because so many sites link into Slashdot and people say, look what I found on Slashdot, I put on my blog. And one way or another, all links lead to Rome or something like that. I've got somebody making noise. Okay. So people do care about photos. Most of these sites, especially Reddit, will pick up a photo with the article. So do give some attention to it. You probably are doing that for other reasons as well. And this probably goes without saying, but I'll say it anyway, which is that it's easier to attract end users than management, especially so on things like Reddit, because CEOs don't have that much time for screwing around on Reddit. And on Friday afternoon, a lot of sysadmins do, or hope to do that. So in general, so most of my attention here is content discovery sites like Reddit and Y Combinator and the rest. So here's what they love and what they don't love. Things that they love are things that make me smarter. How to follow the bouncing ball. This is, today I learned is the other category. Things that make them say, how about that? I didn't know that. And those are the things we remark on to each other too, right? Anything that generates an emotional response of any kind, which is why every career story you ever publish will do well, especially if you give it a headline that reflects that, because career is fear and greed at the same time, so you get a double whammy emotionally. It's one of the reasons I love to write about career stories. Obviously, straight up news stories do well, because that's actually I didn't know that. Today I learned, right? Any geeky details, the under the hood stuff, this is the different parts of how to make a cuckoo clock work, whatever. Nostalgia does really well because it's both how this works and it's an emotion by definition, or it is nostalgia. And anything that tells them you are right. If I write an article and put it on social media that says, here's several ways in which you're the smartest person in the room, people want to hear how they're right. And I'll go into a little more detail on that a little bit. And of course, everybody likes cat videos. So what they don't love, and they will resist and won't upvote, and you'll be sad, is any kind of slideshow. I'm sorry, it's really hard to make a slideshow effective unless it's about something visual. The red carpet at a geeky site would work because by definition it's visual. I did well with a slideshow of best geeky birthday cakes because inherently it's visual. But if you can use an image that is off of one of the image factories, then it shouldn't be a slideshow anyway. They just don't even try. Anything that requires a login, even if all they want is your email ID, that's always, you're putting up a barrier, and it just won't get a login. You can do that in some places like Google Plus, where you're having a one-on-one conversation. You could, I just posted something saying, I know it requires a login. All they're asking for is your email ID. I've never seen O'Reilly misuse it. So if you're willing to, I'm still pretty proud of this article, whatever, and I could get click-throughs for that. but if you can't put that on /dot, that would require a login. No way. Anything that's obvious, any kind of basics of the cloud is your friend, you're never going to get pick up anywhere on social media because it's a no shit Sherlock. You have to tell me something I don't know. And if you aren't going to tell me something I don't know, or at least be really entertaining about it. It's like everything I know about the cloud I learned from Game of Thrones. Maybe you would get it because you're promising I'm going to learn something I don't know. But anything obvious, that's why basics articles don't do really well there, even though they can do okay on SEO. Anything obviously promotional, why you should buy my product, kind of goes without saying. Again, high level and vague articles. Here's the 5 things you need to know about the cloud are never going to do well, where the more specific you are, the much better you are. Here's how to build this using this code with this result. How to use the XYZ API to find pubs in London is going to be much more successful than APIs are your friend. Obviously, they don't like any kind of duplicate content, by which I don't mean the same article reposted, but if the news story came out this morning and you have here's what I think about the news story, people are going to downvote you because I already know that. Again, I don't want to hear about something I already know. And here's one thing that people will claim they don't like listicles, but they do click on them. They absolutely will click on 7 reasons that they hate listicles. The reason behind that is because you're making them a promise or a contract with the reader that I'm going to get to the point 7 times, and you're not going to go on for 2,500 words before you do a lot of do throat clearing. Y Combinator does mean it. If you post something there, if it's 3 ways to do X, you have to say here's some ways to do X. They just hate the number being in there. So to get more specific, first of all, we all have to admire Katie. So my own best practices, these are not necessarily in a great organized way, just the way I blurted them out for myself. One thing is absolutely prepare for success. As an editor, I absolutely do this. Another way to endear yourself to your editor is to go through the article that you submit and have links in line to 3 related articles on that site, at least. So if it's an article on the history of the floppy, if we have links to 3 additional articles on the same site, the idea is to make the site sticky. So when somebody arrives here, they discover 45 minutes later, oh my God, I'm still clicking. What have I forgot to eat lunch. That's my happy place. So, the idea is to bring people into the site, whether it's as a, especially content marketing. So prepare for success by including those. Yes, you can link to your own articles, and I often do that even when they're to elsewhere, obviously not to a competing site. I just, something I'm working on now, people are talking about wishing they could telecommute, and I'm going to link to my O'Reilly article on how to get the boss to let you telecommute. But those are good, think about how to add more value to the article. So, I submit every article to as many sites as I think are relevant. I won't submit to a place that it is not relevant. I won't submit something to a .NET programmers list about floppy disk history because it would piss them off into saying it doesn't belong here. But any place that it's relevant, it's never wasted. Even if you get 0 inbound links from it, it's more links to your site, and that makes Google think better of you. So it doesn't hurt. Obviously, when I think an article is really great, you've seen this just from the IPG link, I'll go the extra mile and try to get it extra attention. When I am absolutely positive that this is exactly right for this audience, I will go out of my way to communicate about it some way or other, like sending an email to the code project guy saying, I am positive you personally will love this. I only do that when I'm positive he personally will love that. So again, use what social text to use. Go for the emotion. What can you say about this? Sometimes you can get stumped on that, and believe me, I do too. So I look for the deck. I look for a pull quote. What's the money quote? You know, what made you giggle or smile or go, oh yeah, that's a good point. Even in the most boring of stories, you can usually do that. Not always. And when in doubt, and I've done this on several occasions when I'm trying to figure out what, you know, to put in this person's, what the social media should be, I've gone back to the original email conversation with the author or the editor, but usually it's with the author, and said, you know, what was their pitch? What did they do that convinced me that I should do this article? And that's probably the point to make in social media. Timeliness absolutely matters. An article with several upvotes in a short period of time is a much better chance of making it to the homepage. If you show up 5 days later and upvote something, it's probably not going to be worth much of anything every once in a while, but very rarely. That is absolutely true of Y Combinator, where if an article gets like 5 upvotes in an hour, it will at least bounce against the homepage. So I go out of my way and I IM people the URL to see if they'll upvote it for me, assuming that they like it. Day of week matters. Friday and Saturdays suck for getting attention for anything you care about. Sundays are far better. I think you get more engagement on Sunday than you do from Friday and Saturday combined. So I post stuff on Friday that I really don't care about, or is absolutely, I'm going to have a beer while I'm reading this material. So which is why we intentionally put the Friday, you know, scheduled the floppy disk story as a Friday story if there ever was one. Because it doesn't matter, and yet people pretending they're still at work and going to read something vaguely related. And a really important thing, and this is something I've watched a whole bunch of people get tripped up on, is the idea of I post my stuff, I get banned, I get in trouble because, you know, I don't get anywhere, and all they're doing is posting their own stories. And that is absolutely the way not to get engagement. You have to remember it's not about you. Really and truly, for every article that I personally care about, something of mine or my site or my article or that I care about its success, I post 4 to 10 things, other things. And you see me do that on Twitter, Google+, absolutely on Reddit and its ilk. Because, you know, we've all been at parties, networking parties of some sort or other, where somebody comes up to you, hands the business card to you and says, call me when you need somebody, and then doesn't talk to you at all and just leaves. That not only do we never call those people who use their business card, we probably throw out the business card by the end of the night, because that's not what this is about. This is making connections and not hire me. If all this feels like it's way too much for you, at the very least, create an ID on these sites just to upvote. The same way that you can be in an online community, or whether it's an IPG list or anywhere else, and just as a lurker, it's fine. But if you have an upvote, if you just show up and upvote things quietly, it helps your friends. And, you know, if you like it, tell other people, hey, thanks for telling me about that. Right? It's just like clicking like on a Facebook post. It doesn't mean anything other than thanks for telling me this existed. As you can tell, I am constantly looking for more places to submit articles. You can obviously follow my lead to do that. And I suggest you do that as well. And also look at what works. It's one thing to say, okay, I'm submitting to all these places, but to the degree you have any insight into what kind of traffic you're getting, look at what works and what doesn't. BizSugar, by all rights, I should not even bother, because I'm not sure it's ever brought me more than 7 page views. It's absolutely a circle jerk. I keep doing it because what the hell. But from a what's working point of view, you would think that should generate traffic. It doesn't, but you'd be surprised what doesn't work. So, and that goes also from what Reddit communities. So, and I'll get into this in a moment, but cloud computing and IT managers, never send any meaningful number of refers to the site, and other smaller communities can. So, okay, Twitter. I don't have that much to say about Twitter, surprisingly enough, because I feel like a lot of people are willing to at least try using it. And I have written a whole book about it. So if you want to know more, we ask at the end. In reality, even though I wrote a whole book about it and I love Twitter, it actually generates the least number of page views for me. If I get 70 page views from posting something to Twitter, that's probably a lot. And I'll take 6,000 from Reddit instead, So it's worth doing. It's as much branding as anything else. It's absolutely worth doing. But a lot of what I see in the newbies to social media is like, I'll post it to Twitter and act as though I've done something. And in reality, you just kind of, whistled once in the wind. It's really important to think of, if you want to use Twitter at all, think of it as a radio station. Somebody is driving to work, they have the radio on, maybe they're listening to it, maybe they're not. They turn the radio off when they get to work. Drive time. This is why they always could charge more for drive time for advertising than they can for 1 o'clock in the morning. Somebody has to be listening when you happen to play this song or you happen to tweet that. So that's why I always schedule things for Twitter at least 3 times. Because I'll intentionally schedule it for morning, afternoon, midday over the course of a week, because I want to make sure that somebody happens to be listening when I tweet this. It's one of the reasons that I don't worry too much. There's other people that do it like 5 times a day or something. But again, in order to make a success of that, you have to do more than your own stuff, which is why I post at least once a day, once an hour, on all sorts of topics. If I wanted to and be just the security girl, I could post only about security, and I probably would get more followers, because then you become a thought leader or whatever in that topic. But I just do it because it's just me. There's plenty of social media tools. I like Hootsuite because I've been using Hootsuite. I have no affiliation with anybody. There's plenty of options. Use one that you like. One of the reasons I like Hootsuite is because I can post to LinkedIn and Facebook at the same time, but use whatever makes you happy. For Facebook and Google+, even though they can generate traffic, Facebook I don't depend on for business-related traffic so much, because I actually just use it as a place for me to talk to my friends. I give them the least attention as far as social media for my articles, for the articles, the quote I care about. But it doesn't hurt. What's important, though, is that if you do care about it, make sure you're setting the distribution to public. The idea is you want everybody to share it. You want everybody to be able to see it. Google Plus does not generate a huge amount of page views. It does generate some, again, worth doing it. But weirdly enough, Stephen and I have had several conversations about it. It has like the nicest bunch of people, like the lowest troll percentage I've come across in any online community in a while. And it's really good if you're asking Hive Mind input on an article, that kind of stuff. It's nice. Google Plus is, still nice. So, okay, Reddit. I've got lots of stuff to say in Reddit, so it's so small you probably can't read it. So one thing that's really important is choosing the right Reddit community to post to. I tell newbies, don't try to post to technology, which is huge. I don't know how many millions of people subscribe to it, because it's so huge that, yes, well, if you get noticed, you do well. But if you aren't good at it, they will downvote you resoundingly. Give yourself an opportunity to try smaller communities that care more. It's really important to pay attention to the size of the community, how active it is. Obviously, if you could post something with a really small subscriber base, very few people are going to notice or care or click through. You can do that with the articles that you don't care about, right? So I can post something to Corsets and not care there's only 150 people. I posted something to the Titanic Reddit. Obviously, the people who read Titanic care about the history of the Titanic. I don't care if that article does well or not. It just helps me with keeping a balance. But do pay attention to how active it is. Some appear to be post only. Cloud computing is just like some kind of circle jerk. Everybody posts something, nobody follows through to read anybody else's stuff, as opposed to sysadmin, where, man, they really care and they have real conversations. I just had 45 responses on something I posted yesterday. But always go more specific rather than general. So if you have an article about Ubuntu, post to the Ubuntu Reddit rather than the Linux one. Linux people might care about an Ubuntu story. Ubuntu people absolutely care. And one thing that's really important is to tell people they're right. If you have an Apple sucks article or what Apple did wrong story, that is not going to do well on Apple, because the cynical way of saying they're all fanboys. But in reality, we want to all believe that what we're doing is right. These are people who are committed to it. If you do, say, have an Apple made a mistake story, you have to put a headline on it that's like, Apple's really great at so many things, but boy, they really screwed up on this. It lets your reader feel that you haven't told them he's wrong. And again, don't waste their time. So the article, the upcoming Old Computer Festival in New Jersey, I posted to the New Jersey Reddit. I wouldn't post that to the Nostalgia Reddit because this percentage of people who might possibly have any willingness to attend something in New Jersey as a small segment of it. If somebody in New Jersey may or may not care about a computer festival, but at least it's relevant to New Jersey. So there's 15 people at least who upvoted it and cared and so on. So think of it as who cares and how can I make them happy by learning about this. Again, beware of domain fatigue. Don't post the same, whether it's zdnet.com or hpe.com or whatever. That is the way to make yourself really unpopular. Again, it's like showing up and handing somebody your business card all the time. That also applies to being just specific to one Reddit. So that even if I post 10 things, but I only post to a security Reddit of things of mine, they're going to say you're only talking here about your shit. So just get out of here. You're not, part of the community. One way around that is if you're posting something every day, ask somebody else to submit your link so it's not just you. It kind of makes it appear that other people care about stuff from HPE, not just Esther. And it's a very good thing to do with friends who are also worried about domain fatigue, like those who post every day from ZDNet, because I have a ZDNet blog. It is okay to repost to post something to more than one Reddit. Ideally, do it a couple of days apart in very unrelated ways. There was a story that I posted about Ann Arbor using Internet of Things technologies to improve the traffic light system. And I put that in Ann Arbor because everyone in Ann Arbor cares about it. Traffic lights, that people in IoT may or may not care about Ann Arbor, even if they care about traffic systems. But if it hadn't done really well in Ann Arbor, or I really cared about that story, I could have also posted it to Internet of Things. And again, you kind of hearing this repeating theory of be part of the community. Don't just be a taker. When in doubt, if you feel like all I'm doing is posting my stuff, I don't have anything else to add, at least comment on somebody else's thread somewhere and just say something, that made me laugh out loud or whatever. I'm sure you can find something to say. When in doubt, this group of people can always find something to comment on Reddit, in journalism or writing or jobs. We all have opinions on these things. There's freelance writing, like, should I see an accountant? You can answer that question with your own opinion. And also, every time you post something to a Reddit, any kind of community, this goes for all of them, go out of your way to upvote 3 things, even if you don't care about them too much, just so you feel like you're showing up and at least taking 3 other people's business cards before you throw them out at the end of the night. But the other thing to do is when you find 3 other things, or at least one other thing you care about, I just posted something to Internet of Things or Ann Arbor. I'll look at the other things in that Reddit and say, wow, this was interesting about Internet of Things. Here's this other article. Click through, and I'll share that on Twitter, Google Plus, Snapzoo, wherever else I think, another Reddit. Like, I don't know why they posted this here, because it would, here's this article I found on Internet of Things about Ann Arbor, I'll post it to Ann Arbor. So that enables, first of all, it makes it a lot easier. It's much easier to post stuff about, not about you. You're already reading this stuff, and talking about it. Just post it somewhere. And also, have fun with this for yourself. Subscribe to the Reddits that interest you personally and professionally. If you're, a Linux person, you should probably be reading a Linux community. You'll get ideas for, wow, this is something people are bitching about. I never realized bothered them. That's an idea for an article. And of course, there's books and Startled Cats and Corsets and Medieval History. I subscribe to somewhere north of 200 Reddits because you know me. So there's a bunch of tools. Some of them are useful. I will let you experiment with them. The one that I find most useful is Reddit Enhancement Suite, which is a Chrome add-in. I think it also adds into other things. You can put a bookmark in your browser, so I can be on an article and just click on the submit to Reddit, and it makes it easy. So I literally have about 4 clicks to do something. Another thing that has bothered a lot of people is the idea that you get banned. This used to be more common on Reddit. They used to throw you out if you broke the rules. Well, it's a lot slower to do that in general. Mainly, they don't want to see everybody get into upvoting parties from the same IP. So if 5 of you work in the same office, don't go around upvoting it. That will get you in serious trouble. And that's about the only main thing that will, especially if you're following the rest of this advice. Eventually, you are bound to piss somebody off because some of the moderators are jerks or whatever. I'm personally banned from project management because I don't even remember why. It was a stupid reason, and what I thought was really amusing is that they weren't exactly generating a lot of page view to begin with. So it's like somebody kicking me out, and I didn't even want to be there. So just post somewhere else, or ask somebody else to post it, or something. But don't worry, don't take it personally. Believe me, really and truly, don't take it personally. It just means you broke a rule. You, like anything else, we're not great when we start. Create a new ID, and you'll be on it. I mean, I've had this one for 3 years. I'm on at least my 5th Reddit ID, and I don't care. The only difference is that if you're new, they make it, you can't submit really fast. Duh, so what? So I'm going to give everybody here has a homework assignment, all 40 of you, or however many it is by this point. And what I want you to do is pick a link, an article that you like, nothing to do with work. I don't want it to be anything that involves you personally or even involves any of us as friends. Pick a fun article on medieval history or rock and roll or beer or anything you like, but not work related. This is part of the homework. And I want you to go through and submit it, follow everything that you learned here, and share that list to IPG link so we can all see what you did and we can give feedback. We can very likely upvote it if we also like that rock and roll story. And also pay attention, like when you start doing this, just do a little clock time of how long did it take you. The first time you do it will take you a half an hour even for something, because if nothing else, you're creating ideas in these places. But I have it down to, for the most part, a basic social media share is maybe 10 to 15 minutes. And I can do it faster if I really want to. So, and when in doubt, include a cat photo. You can always share cat videos. So that's the end of my prepare presentation.
My goodness, you just had that time down to like within 15 seconds.
I'm amazed, actually, because I was intentionally not looking at the clock.
So do I dare unmute everybody all at once, or do we want to raise hands? How do you want to do this?
I don't know. What's your advice?
Well, let me just start off with a couple queued up questions.
Let's do that.
Because Karen asked, does promoting like this only apply to bylined work, or what about when you have a non-bylined content assignment? Does it still pay to promote it?
It always pays to promote it. First of all, it's anything that makes your client happy with more page views means that they're going to be more likely to give you work. Your worst case is that it's one of your, I don't have a word for it, I'll call it throwaway. It sounds like a negative. But the articles I don't care about, my Titanic story and Internet of Things in Ann Arbor, I really don't care whether it goes anywhere or not. Worst case, that's what that non-byline thing is.
What about the custom content stuff? I mean, it seems a little self-serving, but I guess it's all self-serving, right?
It's self-serving. If nothing else, it's all, it's all about me in my heart. We all know it's all about me.
Right.
Okay. I'm going to ask one more question, then I'm going to unmute it all, and we'll see how the free-for-all goes. People were curious about the time. You just mentioned, that you've got it down to 15 minutes. Now, is that per article or?
Yeah, it's per article.
So for how much time do you spend a day with, 4 to 10 out of the posts aren't about you? And so how much of your productive time goes towards all this?
Well, one might argue that it's productive anyway, because being intelligent and learning about things is my job too, right? Which does not always really and truly apply to stories about the Titanic. For my stories, it's like 15 minutes. Obviously, I'll do that for other people occasionally. I actually spend 1 to 2 hours a day reading and setting things up to share, but at least 50% I would be reading it anyway, right? It's like, how much of your time is spent watching the news? If I share what's in the news, it's just sharing what I'm doing anyway. So in almost all cases, I would read it anyway.
Cool. All right. I'm going to unleash the hounds of IPG.
Okay. No, that's what we got.
Havoc and see
There's
what happens.
There's several chat things. Let me scan through this.
Most of it was just unmitigated praise for what you've just shared. And lots of virtual chocolate.
Well, that's cool. I did see, somebody mentioned LinkedIn. Yes, yep. I only share my own, my personal own stuff. If that is my byline on it to LinkedIn, because it feels kind of odd to share your article, however great it was. There's probably somebody who would see it differently. I just think of it, LinkedIn is the bragging me wall for me. So I will sometimes do it for, yay, look at my new site. But
you share it as a post, or do you share it in groups also, or neither?
I used to post it in groups, but the groups for LinkedIn, for the most part, are just a waste of time, and all they are is posting. Somebody's phone's ringing. So yeah, people should probably mute unless you're actively asking something. I'm looking at
lower left corner of the screen gives you control over your muteness.
Yeah, I'm looking. Any other questions? Does Y Combinator shadow ban like Reddit? I'm not really.
SJVN answered that one in line.
Yeah, no, actually, I know that's a perfect. I'm just thinking of the answer. I haven't run into that. They can be really uptight, or less capricious than Reddit, but they're very uptight about what they think belongs and don't belong, and they can be a little snotty, kind of like Bay Area people. That they can be sometimes a little bit too cool for themselves. So yeah, and I think that Steven says they will shadow ban you, but as long as you make sure that you post 3 things that aren't yours for everything.
We got this recipe in an Irish cookbook years ago.
Irish cookbook years ago. Whoever's talking about that?
Start from scratch.
Always, I love technology.
So we know what one person was doing while you were making your presentation.
Yeah. I'm just scanning through. Yeah, I'm surprised. Shaka isn't even awake. I figure I'll have to go get her and make an appearance.
Esther, while you're scanning, one thing I would would counterpoint is about LinkedIn groups. And I would say that in my experience, about 80% of them are self-promotional and low membership, low traffic. But
when you find the right one,
but the professional groups, the ones affiliated with professional associations, tend to be high traffic, very much on target, and like you say, a place for a conversation, not a place to pitch.
yeah, I think if you find the right one,
But
it'd be
you
great.
find one that's in your niche. You have to invest the time to become part of the community. You can't just dive in, drop a bomb, and leave. But if you become part of the community, then it becomes natural, and it can't. For me, it's been a very productive source of referrals and good stuff.
I'll agree with that. I think that to the degree that you have a very clear niche, since I write about so many things at one point, like LinkedIn let you belong to 50 groups. It's like if I write about everything from geeky birthday cakes to security in the cloud, that means belonging to a lot of groups. And I can't possibly really and truly be a member of all, active member of all of them. So I leave other people's expertise to that. One thing Dan mentioned in the comments, which is indeed true, is when the article publishes, I always write to anybody I quoted or who answered, whether or not I quoted them. So if I got 50 responses to a Harrow, I will write to all 50 of them and say, here's the article, it's live with a link. And I will, this way, even if I only quoted 10 people in it, I will get 50 page views because they all want to know if they were quoted. And I will also, I've taken to doing this, once I've tweeted it, I will include the tweet at the end, because if they are quoted, they will retweet me. And talk about, an easy retweet. Mitch asked what the top 3 to pay attention to. For me, it's Reddit and Y Combinator. And then whatever, if I'm lucky enough to have a niche related to the site. So if it's specific to design or news, if I was doing something about web design, I would absolutely pay full attention to that. Again, it has to do with how much of a niche you are. So what else is there? Yeah, and mention there, that's Teresa's point. If I do post something to Twitter and the article mentions anybody with a Twitter handle, absolutely go out of your way, including creating several tweets and spacing them out with their Twitter handle, like 15 people in IoT to follow on Twitter. I will have at least, because as many as fit, like, here's the 10 people to follow on Twitter and IoT, including, link, including A, B, C, D. And since it always fills up 140, gives me at least 3 quotes. Those people will absolutely retweet because, look, I mentioned whoever you are.
One other thing about Twitter and Facebook and Google Plus, for that matter, of course, everybody's putting an image on their posts, right? Because you get twice as likely to be read if you have an image on your post.
Yes.
Don't post just text.
To the degree that you can, because sometimes, if you want to attach an image and the publication assigns some image from somewhere else, you can have to go through a couple of hoops just to separate, get the URL or whatever. It's usually worth doing, especially if it's a good image. If it's another stock photo, it's better than not having one, but a really good cat photo, I am not making it up. If you can put a picture of a cat next to an article about cloud security, you're going to win.
Have you tried pictures of chocolate?
I tried that the other day. It didn't go very far.
Oh, okay. Or beer.
Beer's next. I'll try that next.
Be good. A beer would be really good. Mitch asked about posting once an hour for 24 hours a day. I post pretty much from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. and sometimes outside of that. Mostly sort of like my business day, because otherwise I would be doing nothing else with that. And then it's sort of like representing Esther's business hours, I guess. And let's see.
You're not posting the same thing each hour. You're posting something new each hour.
Yes. Yeah. Something new each hour. That can be, this is where I can get into the repeats, right? So if I have an article that posted this morning, I'll also schedule it for like, well, Sunday afternoon and then Tuesday noon. It's the same, it can be the same link. I try to mix them up a little bit because you never know. And what am I missing? Even New Jersey people hate New Jersey. No, they liked that post.
But they shouldn't.
So
Yeah, I'm just looking for anything else.
Yeah,
So what other questions are that are left unanswered?
I think you've hit most of the questions that were in there.
Okay.
Anybody else got something you want to know?
Yeah. Raise your hand.
There you go.
Okay.
Okay.
So,
Go for it.
Well, I actually put this on the chat. First of all, I love you all because my life would be terribly lonely if I didn't have you and my dog in my room here, my little room. But anyway, that's another story. Everything you said is great, and I'd actually be willing even just to contribute to like a how-to description, because for me to take a half hour, even 45 minutes is very hard, given where I am. But I don't have a problem. I'm thinking of hiring somebody to actually do this. I can pay somebody. What do you mean?
No. You have to do this, and it has to be you. Think of it as it's a half hour you didn't spend writing the article. How long did you spend writing an article, researching it, learning about it? I bet it was more than a half hour, right? It's several years ago. I went to a presentation by the guy that had been at the Onion and started Upworthy, and Upworthy kind of wore themselves out pretty quickly. But he gave a presentation where the headline, the title of the presentation was something like, "The only thing that matters is the title of this presentation." Because you spent a lot of time writing that article and making it as great as possible. But if nobody reads it, you just wasted all that time. Okay. So at the Onion, they have to submit 25 separate article titles. And it's the same concept here, is you have to attract the reader. And only you can do that. You're the one who wrote it. You know why you cared. You know why the reader cares. You cannot outsource that. And it's your article. Don't even consider outsourcing that.
We had an advisor who said that the articles that we're writing are gifts to the reader, and we need to view them that way. And if you view it that way, then you're going to want to go out and shake the thing and ring the doorbells and rattle it around and make people want to read it. It's a gift to them. You're doing them a favor. Think about it that way.
I appreciate it and I understand what you're saying. I have another way of looking at it, if you want to hear. Right. What? Or no? You can say no.
No. What's your way of looking at it?
Tell me.
Yeah, for me, and I agree 90% with what you're saying, but there's also this element of Sales 101 where you create a funnel, and there are people, I have friends that are salesmen, and they literally pay people to sit on the phone. It's what you learn in life insurance school. Every phone call you make is $7. So if you make 100 phone calls, you're going to make $700 eventually, right? If you make 1,000, you will eventually make $7,000. So the question really becomes, is there stuff that's personal and focused? I get that, but there's also stuff that's just fundamental volume metrics of, of hitting as many places as you can to get that just consistency, continual consistency. It's a numbers game. I don't know if that's useful. I haven't done it. I haven't hired anybody yet. I'm still doing it.
Don't. Just take it from the expert. Don't do that.
Yeah. Esther, I think the point is that this is not making a cold call. This is making a connection. This is engagement.
Yeah, this is a communication. It's a conversation. You don't outsource having a conversation with your reader.
Mm-hmm. Right.
You don't want to send a robot out to do a human's job.
Right. Well, or you don't send somebody to a networking event to meet people to then introduce them to you.
So is that what I'm doing wrong?
Some people do.
Well, some people do, but this is, to me, it's, they want you.
Yeah, and I understand, and this is a religious topic. I get it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and it is, and I can accept that, and I appreciate what you're saying. It's for me. I mean, quite bluntly, one of the problems I have right now is I got to I have to make a quantum leap, and this is the story I'll leave you with. I had a book proposal out about a great book. It was a dynamite book. Everybody loved it. The publisher was ready to sign. And the question came out is, how many Twitter followers do you have? And I walked in with my 400, and they said, come back to us when you got 20,000.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not at all surprised. Again, that goes back to my point about from the 1990s. It's their job to get the book on the shelf. It's your job to get the book off the shelf.
Right. So going back to my essential problem here is it's a quantum jump, right? How do I go from 4 to 20? Okay.
That's I think going into detail about how to grow your Twitter followers and that kind of stuff is probably a separate conversation, and perhaps when we could schedule. If this does seem to be a popular thing to do, we can have a monthly lunch and learn thing, but in reality, the best way to do that is to start posting regularly about things that you care about, and to retweet other people and to engage with other people. And you don't even consider the same way that if somebody leaves a comment on one of your articles, you would never consider saying, I'm going to have somebody else write an answer to my comment.
No.
And that's exactly what it is.
Value, right?
It's just time consuming.
Yeah. It's just enormous time. Yeah. And particularly if I have to go, like it's like right now I have a lot of time. In 3 weeks, I won't have a lot of time. So.
And that's fine because you can use tools to schedule.
Yeah,
I have articles scheduled to post just for myself. This isn't like the 3 times retweet or anything. I have things scheduled through next Friday. I schedule out of ways. When I know I'm going to be on vacation, I schedule things so that I never have dead air.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
Alan asked an interesting question. Do the big sites track this stuff and relate it back to the writers? I mean, I know that you do as an editor, who puts in the effort, but do site site editors track writers' results on this and make assignments and skew their assignments and topics by social response?
Yes, they do.
Yes.
I know that editors have asked me about my reach before giving me assignments.
Reach defined as your number of followers,
clout, followers, whatever metric you can give them, but they want it. And it's also very true with the book publishers. I mean, the book story doesn't surprise me at all. I mean, first question they ask you after, what's the working title is, what's your platform? How big a following do you have?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Although this depends on the topics and the industry you're talking about. Books is mass market. I was doing a wine advice blog for a few years, and I had 300 followers on there, and that got me into every professional wine event in the Bay Area without any trouble at all.
Yeah, but if you wanted to sell a wine book, 300 followers wouldn't have been enough. It's a question of how big
Exactly.
how
Books
big
is
the
mass
platform
market.
is that they need that you raise. So, anything else? More questions?
Yeah, I got to go to my next meeting. You all rock. Bye.
Okay.
Bye.
All right.
Esther, terrific. Thank you so much. This is great.
Okay. Take care, everybody.
Thank you, Esther. You are a blessing to us all.
Oh, I try. Come on. Love you all.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
I'm going to shut this thing off.
Yeah,
All right.
congratulations.
Esther, I'm going to stop the recording at this point.
Okay. Now, if anybody wants to hang